and Fantasy. And yesterday, one of the players that we expected to be here, but they're in the loser side of things. Can they make it all the way back on time?
Yes, that'll definitely be interesting, and I like that he's still making a presence here, right? Because again, that's the most important thing. As long as he can hold a consistent performance and always make it to the top ends of the bracket, that's going to be huge. But we're kicking it off with Ludibrolo versus BELGIANGRUMP, and if this is anything to go off of, the choice is Portal.
It's
Craft.
clear.
If we see a bunch of Portal Craft, okay. I'm actually glad he took for it. I was not ready for like a bunch of Portal Craft games again, man. They don't do it for me. I don't know.
Forestcraft over Swordcraft though is an interesting pick.
Yes.
We've seen Swordcraft be the go-to
with Albert.
With Albert as the picture, but of course not existent in draft anymore. So, Envy, talk us through these picks and tell us what you think.
I think that the Forest over Sword is, it might mean that he wants to play a more aggressive game plan, as we established yesterday for everybody who wasn't here for that. Forest is naturally very aggressive in Take-Two at the moment, and they have some really good cards for that. I mean, as you can see from just this pick alone, this screen alone has a lot of the cards that do that, with Fairy Whisperer and Leaf Man. And his first pick being Elf Queen Bad Catha was also a really, really good pickup too. So.
And we saw Mighty Dwarf, a card that people have left forgotten in their collections, actually take down the tournament yesterday.
Yeah, it's actually interesting that you mentioned how aggressive Forestcraft can be. We definitely saw both ends of that yesterday, right? We saw a game where I think it was Fenrir. Was that the player?
I believe so, yeah. He played Forest twice.
Yeah, he played Forest twice, and he had this very aggressive game plan where he was buffing up his tokens and had a wide board and was just swinging. But then DFC Lover, the winner of the tournament, also opted to play a very board control style game and kind of closed it out with a Mighty Dwarf, as you mentioned. So there is some flexibility in there, and I'm actually curious to see how divergent these drafts can be to provide options to these players that could be one or the other.
Envy, I actually had a question for you about the 2-drops. So you made mention of 2-drops in Take-Two being very important. And one thing that I notice is that Forestcraft actually has access to so many 2-drops. Is this possibly a reason why people are opting for it, just because they can be a lot more consistent in the early game?
Well, I mean, that kind of like contributes to them being good in aggressive decks, like building them for aggression. But they also have access to very easy fairy tokens through Brambles and Elf Song. And just having things to actually have on the board when you Elf Song or when you play Brambles are basically the best ways to play Forest at the moment in Take-Two.
Gotcha. And then for other classes, how important is it for them to get some number of 2-drops? Like, what is the number you're aiming for?
It's definitely very important. You should put some weight to having 6+ at least 2-drops, especially if one's a spell. You kind of have to realize, like, if you find Forestcraft or Swordcraft and you go second, if they play a 2-play .22 into a 3-play.23, do I just lose immediately or no? Like, you have to play around that.
The rush down.
That is true. You know, Forestcraft actually has a lot of 2-cost followers that are not 2-2, right? They are either 1-1 or some other weird stat line that doesn't feel super great. And you could end up losing a lot of tempo just by the value followers that the opponent is dropping.
And our graphics guy doing me a solid and putting treasure map up there for all of you to see. The treasure map that people have also forgotten, and it makes me sad.
Ooh, he's got Flower Princess and Eperia in this deck. Eperia, I feel like, is very, very dangerous.
Oh yeah, for sure. Any card that sees like extensive constructed play is probably going to be explosively powerful in Take-Two, and Hyperia is definitely one of those cards.
Yeah, Ambush, I feel like in a format like Take-Two, where you don't have access to, Tribunals or Lurching Corpse combos or something like that to just immediately take them out, are just so high value. I remember in the last format of Take-Two in Swordcraft, where they had all of those Ambush followers. You know what I mean? Like, that was so defeating to play against sometimes. You're just like, I actually just can't do anything against my opponent's followers. This feels bad, so.
You mean the Vagabond Frog era?
Stop. Let's not talk. We don't talk about Vagabond Frog. When that card cost 3, it was not my favorite thing.
Vagabond Frog is very peaceful. He always tells people, let's have some quiet and silence. He's very, just a very respectable frog.
Yeah, as he hits your face every turn for, 3,
no
5,
respect,
7.
Rainy. No respect. No respect.
No respect. I believe that's the second Elf Song that we've seen Ludibrolo pick up. I'll be interested to see if he can take good use of that. Goblin Leader Earthshock Ogre sounds real tempting there.
Yep.
Earthshock Ogre, again, is a very powerful card in this format. It's one of the best late game cards in Take-Two at the moment. So really went under the radar for a long time, but it's really shining now. So that's good.
Again, just another late game option you can play that does not require an evolution orb. And again, we made mention of at the beginning of the tournament yesterday that the last evolution matters. And, you know, once those evolution orbs are down, and we've seen that all throughout the tournament yesterday, when you're done with evolution orbs, the game gets so much harder.
Yeah.
So you need those things that can push through afterwards.
Wow, this is an interesting last pick here. Bad Kappa, if you want to grab another one, but then the Ferry Driver comes with it, which I suppose might not be the worst. You convert maybe some early tokens into something usable in the late game, but it's also, it's hard to imagine.
But you can't pass up Lilac.
Lilac's pretty good.
I think I'm glad. I think I saw him take Lilac, and I'm glad. But I definitely agree with that pick. Lilac is insanely powerful in Take-Two if you're able to go first. So,
especially without removal, like Dance of Death has been long gone. I feel like we've all forgotten about that card since it's just disappeared from everywhere.
Yeah, no one plays Unlimited. No one kids with that mode, right?
Oh, we'll see it soon. We'll see it soon enough.
Yeah,
it'll come back.
Yeah.
Cool. So we just went through the draft. Envy, any thoughts about this player's draft overall before we jump into the game here?
I think this Forest draft looks really solid. I think if he can establish any kind of board into an Elf Song, this is going to be pretty close. He didn't get Wood of Brambles, which, as we know, is a very powerful card. But I think there's enough around the deck that doesn't need it to win.
All right.
Perfect.
Well, seems like Ludibrola is going to be in a very good spot. But we'll see. We're going to jump into the game and see the first match of the European Shadowverse Open Take-Two tournament. It's going to be interesting to see how these players progress throughout the course of the tournament because we're testing them on a whole bunch of formats. And the reason being is because the 2018 World Grand Prix is coming up at the end of the year. A $1 million prize pool just for first place.
$1 million.
So we're trying to make sure that our North American and European players are well prepared for all the formats that are going to be tested at that stage.
You gotta be. I mean, we saw a few players skirt by, right? Like, if you lose your Take-Two matches, and the way we saw it last time was there were 2 rounds of it, you had to win everything else. So you have to be very well prepared to win all of your matches outside of Take-Two if you do not want to practice it. We do not encourage that. Try to win all of your rounds.
Yeah.
Take-Two being a big part of that.
What are your thoughts about Flower Princess as a card?
I think Flower Princess is great, especially in Take-Two. I mean, it's got great value. If you do manage somehow in your life, we did see an active Hector yesterday, so it is possible. If you can get that extra burn spell off of it, it feels amazing, of course. As it stands, a 4-play.24 on the play is probably a better stat line than most things you're going to play on the play. So it's not a bad card outside of that anyway.
Yeah, we talked a lot about that 4 defense threshold, especially in the context of something like Spiderweb Imp, which is definitely a little bit different because it's so much cheaper, right? But 4 defense is a really big number to have.
Absolutely. And Belgian Grump doing us a solid and making sure that Portalcraft is still around.
There it is.
It's not going anywhere, folks.
He's got the Spinaria, which is one of my favorite cards because of just how ridiculous things get, especially if you have multiple Spinarias on board.
Yeah.
It's so fun.
Aha. And then the Flower Princess version of Portalcraft, Flower Doll. The one that can put puppets into your hand. But that one I feel like is hard to utilize. Early game, easy. Late in the game, do you really want to be emptying your hands to put puppets back? I'm not sure. But definitely a good value card.
The Leaf Man here, just on tempo. And this is interesting. We talked about how Forestcraft sometimes gets understated followers at certain play points. But this is a case where it's a little topsy-turvy.
Yeah, this is not the curve you're necessarily looking for if you're an aggressive deck. In the case of DISLUDIBROLO, Belgian Grump seems like he has access to all of the good cards in his deck, but also needs to find a decent curve as well after this 4 and 5, because as we can see, that Magnet Legacy isn't really going to get too much value out right now.
Oh, double Elf Song. That's going to be really interesting. He needs to figure out some way to get some fairy tokens. I mean, it could go real poorly for Belgian Grump if Ludibrola could actually get those Elf Songs to pop.
That's true. It's going to be tough with the hand. Of course, Flower Princess can set up a turn 5 where you can play a good number of cards to the board into an Elf Song, but it really depends on how Belgian Grump wants to play this game. If he wants to be aggressive, it might allow Ludibrola to get there. If he wants to play defensive like we're seeing right now, it might be super hard.
So the Flower Doll goes back, plus the puppet in hand. And as we saw yesterday, puppets are really, really important for Portalcraft.
Ooh. Okay.
I think you kind of got to go with the Flower Princess. It makes your hand so much more effective, right?
That's right. And now with new options in hand, Ludibrolo can draw cards next turn if he likes to with the Elf Song. With the addition of the new 2/2 in hand, whenever its attack or defense gets modified. Fita. Yeah, you draw a card.
If he plays Fita and the Fairy and then the Elf Song, he'll again get Fairy tokens and get an additional card draw and have a very, very strong board.
That's right. And this, it's funny, but the hand was looking kind of awkward, but now it looks like a constructed aggro forest deck in hand. Can he employ all of these threats fast enough to actually put Belgian Grump behind here?
All right, Spinaria down. This is, combined with the puppet, a very, very effective way to clear the board without having to spend an evolution orb or even really deal with the fact that there's a 4-attack follower on the board.
And keeping the hand size low as well for Flower Doll to actually get more use in the upcoming turns. So I really like the play style of Belgian Grump here, playing very defensive.
Yeah. The Flower Doll is going to be especially good as well because Hamlin exists. Now, Hamlin is very interesting because you can actually replicate your puppets to give you that extra use of that 0-cost 1-damage ping.
Oh, interesting. Ludibrolo going with Ariana instead this turn.
We'll have to see. Yeah. Maybe he's looking for a double buff on the Elf Song. And when we think about that, right, I actually do think there might be a world where that makes sense to me just because it's so hard to take down stats in Take 2, right?
It's true. Especially on a single turn. Yes, you can evolve over one thing, but can you evolve over a whole board? Not really.
And that might mean the difference of, oh, now you have a whole board full of high stat followers as opposed to a board that was just barely able to be cleared out, right?
Did he just draw another Spinaria?
I believe so, yes. So what's going to be... so it's not going to double up the effect on the current artifact, but he's going to get another artifact that can do a similar ping.
These are some good legendaries Belgian Grump open up. I like this. I like this. Making Portalcraft look good.
Yeah. The interesting part is he's going to have to figure out how to reach the 3 defense that the Ariana has. He doesn't really want to swing into the 5 attack, but I think... I don't know if he's installed any other artifacts. He could throw his first Spinaria artifact and see if he can grab another one. Interesting. It looks like he's just going to go for some face damage here. So he does pull an artifact there, and it was, the Radiant.
Radiant artifacts. Pretty good one to pull. Again, another card that you can grab that does not require evolution orbs in order to take something out. Or just push face damage. That card's really good.
He pulled the Eperia.
This hand looks so good. Like, if he could have, rolled this out on tempo, this hand would have been insane. But as it stands, it might just be a little too slow to combat what Belgian Grump is doing here.
The big thing for me is that you don't have any ward, and it feels like you're a turn too late, right? I think Ludibrolo might still go for it if he doesn't know that there's Storm in hand. But, I mean, looking at 3, maybe 5 damage on board, I would still go for the Eperia play here and then double Elf Song the next turn, right? And just, like, try to play that situation out, maybe evolve to gain back board control or something like that. But I think it's just too dangerous with the Radiant artifact coming down next turn, as well as you don't have healing, you don't have ward available to you, and you kind of want to make sure you have that evolution orb for the Earthshock Ogre that you already have in hand, but you only have 1 orb left.
I gotta say, this line of play makes the most sense to me only because he's Forestcraft. If he doesn't get the damage in now, it might be impossible for him to get that damage in later. So he's got a spike, and I think saving these Elf Songs for actual damage to face is probably the best thing he can be doing, and this is the best way he can do it with the Eperia being played. So I like this line of play.
That's going to be a big Eperia as well. Especially if you consider that he might throw in the Evolution Orb, but oh my god, Belgian Grump grabbing the Grump?
These cards are great. All these cards in his hand are just great. And he's got the Magna Legacy to, like, if there is a huge Elf Song turn, there will be enough artifacts if he does play this Radiant Artifact to take out 3 3s, which is huge.
I believe his Magna Legacy is going to go up to at least 3 damage if both the Radiant and the Spinaria currently on board get removed. by copying the flower doll. But this is a lot of damage. He's going for board trade here, at least with the 1P.
Another Radiant Artifact drawn. Oh, that's right. Those are the only ones he put in his deck
Yeah,
so far.
because he's got
from the 4-drop.
He did the Iron Forged Fighter, I think it's called. Guarantees you 2 Radiant Artifacts.
That's right. This is a pretty good setup. I have not seen a Portalcraft deck actually only put Radiant Artifacts in their deck to pull, but this is looking pretty fantastic.
Yeah. I think the big tragedy is I think you're going to have to spend the Evolution Orb, right?
You've got to be defensive here. You can't push for anything like a 2-turn lethal here because your opponent has too big of a board. You have to play defensive. He might actually have to use a Siperia defensively too if he's feeling too frightened by the damage.
The fact that Spinaria is still on board, every time these Radiant Artifacts come into play, they get that benefit of peeing 1. So if he doesn't deal with this Radiant Artifact and the second one comes down, all of a sudden he can still swing face and not have to worry about certain things on board. You know, it gets much more efficient for him.
That's right. Now, in saying all this, you know, DISLUDIBROLO has a great turn here to wipe the entire board if he chooses. He might not use this evolution orb to take out the Hamlin.
As long as you're not in fear of lethal right now, the Earthshock Ogre is just going to be so much bigger of a swing.
Yeah.
You definitely should save it, as long as you know you have one more turn.
This is an interesting Forestcraft game. Never have I seen a Forestcraft player get this late in the stages with double Elf Song, Fairy Saber, you know, all of the things that you'd want to play on curve. This still could be ramp up to a crazy
He still has
aggro
a huge
endgame.
Elf Song turn here, right?
Yep.
And now he has 3 followers on board. BELGIANGRUMP has to respect that, and as we were talking about, the Magnum Legacy in the back.
Unreal.
Oh, man. And now no Evolution Orbs left.
All right, Earthshock Ogre's going to do a pretty big hit right now. Actually, I don't even know if you can play that. Maybe you have to go wide here just to make it really hard to deal with your board.
So if there's no way to take down the Magna Legacy, I mean, 10 damage is guaranteed in hand for BELGIANGRUMP, we can see, and there's no ward on the table.
That's right.
I think going wide is the option because it provides you the best opportunity to swing back as much as you can, right?
Yeah, my thought process was just something that could challenge the Magna Legacy, but you're right. From looking in hand, that's not going to be enough. And actually, like you said, without a ward, that's just going to be it.
Yeah, he does have the Evolution Orb there too, so I guess he needs to figure out... He can't play both the Earthshock and the Beetle Warrior. Can you...
I was thinking about a way that you could pump the Beetle Warrior up big enough, but I don't think it's possible. I don't think you can get there.
Yeah, he needs to play the Beetle Warrior now. Okay.
Looking for something.
He has to play the Beetle Warrior now, but it doesn't get the stat boost from the Elf Song.
And LudiBrolo knows. He knows the only artifact to put in deck were Radiant Artifacts. He knows that 2 artifacts were pulled. He's got to know this is coming.
Yeah. Wow.
What should I do?
Yep.
I feel like after the turn 5, where LudiBrolo opted not to play his Elf Song turn, it really he just couldn't use his hand after that point.
Couldn't catch back up, unfortunately. And yeah, BELGIANGRUMP showing us that Portalcraft, it's still a good choice.
It was a great Portalcraft hand. I really am curious to know how the game would have changed. I mean, I would have to go back and look at the board, say how it would have changed if LudiBrolo opted to just say, I'm going to get just value on board piece after piece. I think he was going for the double Elf Song play that we talked about, right? But just what happens if you just go for one of them?
If he made the wide board before the Magna Legacy, could have taken out the wide board and just played basically the opposite way where the big threats came out later. Much different game, but